Now, Ukraine and Russia will hold ceasefire talks at the border between Belarus and Poland. The second round of talks have come as the Russian invasion of Ukraine has now entered into its 8th straight day.
Как вы знаете, на прошлой встрече мы обсудили позиции, а также огласили ряд предложений Российской Федерации, взаимосвязанных с немедленным режимом прекращения огня. По ряду предложений мы, в общем-то, нашли взаимопонимание даже за столом переговоров, но, однако, по некоторым наиболее принципиальным из них, что вполне ожидаемо, украинская сторона взяла время на размышления и на консультации с Киевом.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has confirmed that there will be no change in the Ukrainian delegation. The high-level delegation includes the Minister of Defense, the advisor to the President of Ukraine, and also Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister has said that although Kiev is ready for talks with Moscow, it will not accept any ultimatums by Russia. Volodymyr Zelensky had earlier accused the Kremlin of trying to force him into concessions, but continuing to press forth with its invasion.
Росіян, в принципі, залишаються незмінними. Це ті вимоги, які озвучив Путін у своєму зверненні перед початком війни, по суті, оголошуючи нам війну. Зараз ми готові до переговорів, ми готові до дипломатії, але ми в жодному разі не готові до прийняття будь-яких російських ультиматумів. Коли відбудуться нові переговори, наразі невідомо.
Now, the Russian delegation is being led by Vladimir Putin's aide and culture advisor, Vladimir Medensky. Earlier, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, had slammed Kiev, saying that Moscow was in fact ready for another round of negotiations. But the Ukrainian side is, of course, playing for time on US instructions. The first round of talks took place on the 28th of February near the Belarus-Ukrainian border. They produced no breakthrough. The Russian delegation has said that both the parties found certain points on which common positions could be foreseen. Now, according to reports, Volodymyr Zelensky's office has demanded for an immediate and complete withdrawal of all Russian troops, including those in Crimea and Donbas. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what is likely to happen and also what can be expected from these peace talks, we are joined in by Ms. Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, who is a political consultant who is joining us from Washington, D.C. Ms. Brenner-Schmitz, this will of course be the second round of negotiations that are expected to take place between Ukraine and Russia. It is the 8th day of Russia's war in Ukraine. What do you expect is likely to in fact come out of this?
Well, it doesn't look very promising, and that's just because it doesn't seem that Russia is in fact negotiating in good faith. I mean, the bottom line is that they have invaded a country and they need to leave that country. There's no middle ground to be found on that fact, and it seems President Putin has zero interest in abiding by the diplomacy of the world or the laws that govern our humanity.
Now, looking in terms of what is happening on the ground, the Russian assault into Ukraine, which was pretty swift on the first day, has now bogged down. Russia seems to be making very slow progress, but it is still making some progress. It's managed to win over the key port city of Kherson. It's also upped the pressure in Mariupol. It is looking to create some kind of a corridor between the Donbas region and Crimean Peninsula. With this being the case, do you think Ukraine has a strong hand in these negotiations?
I don't know that it gives Ukraine a strong hand. Certainly the world's support of Ukraine does. And absolutely, this has got to be very embarrassing for President Putin. He seemed to think Russia was going to come in and in a couple days take this country over. And the Ukrainians have proved that they are going to stand up and fight for their country and their freedom. It hasn't gone as Putin has thought or planned, but he still has quite an arsenal in his war chest, and we need to be very concerned about where his mental decisions, what he's using as his reasoning, and what he wants to put forth as far as the continued force in Ukraine and what he's threatening. He's putting up flags about nuclear. I mean, this is not following anything that we can trust that the words are coming out of his mouth.
Right now, at this point of time, it is being said that Ukraine, perhaps on the advice of the Americans, is perhaps looking for more time. Now, the West has, of course, been ratcheting up the pressure on the Russians with increasing financial sanctions. But do you think the West has a cohesive strategy that can actually halt the Russian war machine?
I mean, the West is certainly leaning in. I don't think that Putin, and I even think a lot of the West was a little bit surprised by what they were able to agree so cohesively and so quickly on. I think the world continued to be thrilled but shocked by items like Switzerland stepping in, who is typically neutral and joining in these sanctions. So certainly there is the immense pressure, and as President Biden stated in his State of the Union last night, we're going to continue to do so. We're going to ratchet it up. Today you saw different toys of the oligarchs being seized, their $1 million yachts, and further economic sanctions. You're seeing the protests happening in Russia, which is, certainly brave and heroic on even those citizens' parts in a country where you don't have that freedom to do so without repercussion. So the West is continuing to put on a cohesive, agreed upon pressure onto to pressure Russia out of this.
Right.
This
Absolutely,
invasion.
indeed. That does appear to be the case. We'll have to wait and watch as to what, of course, comes out of these negotiations that we expect will be held later in the day today. But thank you very much indeed, Ms. Brenda Schmitz, for joining us from Washington, D.C. and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.